On January 1st, 2024, the Corporate Transparency Act, the CTA, came into effect. It's a federal law. But what does that actually mean for you? Well, it means if you have an LLC or corporate entity that you formed at the state level, you now have to notify the federal government about who runs it and who controls it. And no, I'm not joking. When I first heard this too, I thought it was a joke or somebody putting nonsense out on the internet, but it's actually a legitimate thing. And there's just one more thing I want to put in here, just so I just think we need to know how scummy our government is. This idea about beneficial ownership information and controlling and knowing information about LLCs and corporate entities. Well, how did they pass this? It was part of the National Defense Authorization Act of 2021. Yes, it was squeezed in there into a defense provisions bill. God, I love Congress. Don't you? Now, what does all this mean? Well, the federal government wants to know who your beneficial owners are. And it's provided through beneficial ownership information, BOI. And who do you have to provide this BOI to? Well, you have to provide to the Treasury Department, in particular the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. Well, they enforce financial crimes. Obviously enough with their name. But what is this meant to be? It's meant to go after, and you have to notify the feds of who has substantial control over your company. So not just the owner. So if you are a sole proprietor, well, yeah, you'd have to provide your information. But if you have senior officers, if you have multiple shareholders, anybody like that who has control over your corporation and corporate entity, you are going to have to tell the federal government about them and file reports about that. Now, why is this being done? Well, the government claims the CTA is all about combating money laundering, fraud, and other illicit activities from anonymous entities. Ooh, spooky, I know. Really, this is my drug war and my terrorism being used to hide further and further governmental intrusion and governmental surveillance. That's all this is at the end of the day. Now, some of you might be thinking that I'm painting with a very broad brush when I say basically everybody out there with a corporation or some sort of corporate entity that has been formed has to do this. Well, I'm being very broad because this is a very broad sweeping law. The only groups and organizations that aren't subject to this are groups and entities subject to heavy governmental oversight and reporting requirements already under various laws that already exist. And it's groups like this. So this leaves us with a very big question. What are the deadlines? If the law just came into effect 15 days ago, how do you comply with it? Well, there's time. And those timelines are based upon when your LLC or corporate entity was formed. And those timelines are, if your company was created or registered prior to January 1st, 2024, you have until January 1st, 2025 to report BOI information. If your company was created or registered on or after January 1st, 2024, and before January 1st, 2025, you must report BOI information within 90 calendar days after receiving actual or public notice that your company's creation or registration is effective, whichever is earlier. Now, what does this part mean? Well, it means once you receive notice in the mail or you receive and you find out publicly that your organization or corporate entity is recognized by your state, you then have 90 calendar days, not business days, calendar days, to provide that BOI information to FinCEN. If your company was created or registered on or after January 1st, 2025, you must file BOI information within 30 calendar days after receiving actual or public notice that its creation or registration is effective. So going forward for the 2025 calendar year and onwards, basically until they change this law, once you receive that actual or public notice that your organization and corporate entity exist, and welcome to the corporate world. Here's more stuff you have to file. You then have 30 days to comply and file your BOI information with FinCEN. Any updates or corrections to beneficial ownership information that you previously filed with FinCEN must be submitted within 30 days. So once you file everything with FinCEN, you provide your initial BOI information. If that changes, you have 30 days to notify them. So what could change? Well, people might leave your company. You might get new senior officers. You might buy out one of the shareholders. You might add shareholders. The company might change ownership, period. Any number of things that can happen where you're changing the senior people in it, you're going to have to comply with this. And what's this going to do going forward? I could see people realizing, like, I don't want the government to know I'm involved in this company or that company. If you decide to ignore these rules and do whatever you want,
whatever, I do what I want.
You still have penalties, and there will be punishments for this. If they catch you, you can face a fine of up to $500 a day per violation. And then if they determine your violation is egregious enough, you can face up to 2 years in prison and a $10,000 fine. So yes, the government's being very serious about wanting to get up in your business.
Be more funny!
So is this going to lead to a lot of problems? Yeah, there's going to be a ton of these organizations that aren't going to have their BOI information in FinCEN. I mean, just there's so many of them. How many corporations exist out there? So many of these were created before the internet, and in the age of the internet, creating a corporation's even easier. A couple clicks of the mouse, a little bit of typing, you pay a little bit of money, boom, you have a corporation formed. So there are a gajillion corporations out there, and I'm sure people are going to be getting notices in the mail and flyers in the mail from companies saying, hey, we'll help you file, saying, did you know that there's you have to register your LLC with the federal government? You know what people are going to do when they read that brochure? They're going to throw it out. And I don't blame them because it sounds like a bunch of bullcrap. And it is bullcrap. It is garbage. Sadly, though, it's federal bullcrap, and federal garbage means you actually have to deal with it. Now, how are companies that do the LLC registration things and help you with that? They're going to be able to add this to their smorgasbord of what they do and help you file to get in compliance. Sure, that's not a problem. And I'm sure they're going to scour their databases and send out emails saying, hey, Sean, you know, that LLC you filed for your YouTube thing and your law firm, well, hey, for a couple of bucks, we'll help you getting set with the BOI. Cool. That's going to happen a lot, I guarantee. But it's everybody else that's out there. I mean, what's going to happen? How's this going to work? This is a disaster waiting to happen. And why? Because the government wants their nose in your business. That's the only reason why. That's all this is about. If you're interested in looking up what is all this going to entail to provide the BOI information to FinCEN, this is the link where you're going to have to go. It shows you how to prepare, how you're going to register, what documents and information you're going to need, and then you can do it. So that's it for today, guys. Let me know what you think. Comments or questions below. Do you have an LLC? Are you going to register it? Do you agree this is government intrusion? Or do you really think they're just trying to fight the heckin' terrorists and heckin' criminals? I don't know. I mean, I'm just cynical like that. But until next time, everybody, just because you did it doesn't mean you're guilty.